going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning back into another video. Today we are working on our front wheel drive turbo Honda or Acura Integra. We're going to be showing you how to do boost by gear step by step. We're going to break it down in very simple terms, how you can put a kit that you get into the mail onto the car all in about 10 minutes. Super easy to do. Right in here we have the Burton Racing boost by gear kit. Beautiful thing about this kit, this actually comes with DOT approved airline, as well as the push lock fittings. These are all super easy to use. Comes with weatherproof connectors right there on the solenoid itself. And right here we have the Boost by Gear Harness Mini. Like I mentioned, this is a complete plug and play kit. There's no cutting, no splicing, nothing weird, nothing wacky, and you can't really mess this up. This is basically a foolproof setup for going boost by gear. On our Integra, we're doing a standalone ECU, but I still wanted to show you guys how you can integrate this to a stock Honda setup. So I'm gonna be showing this as reference on another car, but as for the solenoid itself, we're still gonna be putting this on my Integra. Let me get this opened up and actually lay everything out for you, because there's some kits that come with most of the fittings, but it misses a little bit of line or it misses the vent. Not to throw any shade at any other companies, but the quality control at Burton Racing is always second to none. It's a very good team over there that likes to make sure you get everything that you need in your package. Great customer support, so you don't have any questions upon install. And if you ever do, you can feel free to reach out to me or refer back to these videos as well and get to where you need to go. So we decided to go with the four-port solenoid, and it's actually sold by Burton Racing with the full kit. And then this right here is going to be used with those push lock fittings like I mentioned. If you aren't familiar with these, this is a -8 NPT. Essentially this will go to the actual solenoid, various spots. And right here, it's a very simple to use method instead of using vacuum line. So if you use vacuum line, they tend to break, they get tears in them, they can be a little bit flimsy. The nipples themselves, they tend to crack, and there's always a lot of issue. This is super easy. You just put it right there, and you can't pull it out unless you push right there, and it pulls right out. Super easy, removable, reusable, and basically dummy proof. Look, you push in, you can't pull out unless you pull this blue tab back, and then it pulls out perfectly. Super easy to use if you guys aren't familiar with these. We're gonna try to put as many of these style push lock fittings on our car as possible, just because it makes everything so much easier. It's right up there with the AN stuff because it looks clean, it works good, and it's all supplied with that Burton Racing full boost by gear kit. One thing to note right here, like I mentioned earlier, they already come pre-connected. They have a connector on this side, and this is fully weatherproof. Some companies just do 2 snipped wires, but Burton Racing actually has a weatherproof connector on there, making it super easy to use. The 4-port solenoid is a little bit more race than the 3-port solenoid. You'll have one breather on this side, 2 fittings right here to the wastegate, and then 1 to the turbo or a compressed air source. Very easy to use. I'll show up a diagram in just a little bit. But the 4-point allows you to make a little bit more boost than a 3-port. And there are a few more different settings that if you want to discuss with your actual tuner or whoever's going to be setting up the boost settings on your car, they can actually tell you what their preference is, and you can make an educated choice on what to buy from that point forward. Moving on, we're actually going to unbox the mini harness. The mini one will just be for the small fuse style, and the regular harness will be for the big fuses. Depends what model Honda you have. Some of the fuse boxes use the little ones, some of them use the big ones. And you just really have to check either online and see which one yours carries, or look at your fuse box and see which style you have. Really simple. It's nothing like rocket science or anything. The beauty of this kit is it not only comes with the fresh fuse to use, it actually uses piggyback. So this goes into your stock fuse box location. You still get to run your desired fuse right there, and this will plug in directly to the boost by gear kit. Super simple to use. Let me show you off the car real quick. This will plug in like this. Both weather connector on both sides of the connector, they're weatherproof. Like I mentioned earlier, super secure. Since this is gonna be in your engine bay, they make it as dummy proof as possible. Super easy to come off, it doesn't get stuck or anything. This will go to your fuse box, like I mentioned, and a simple 1 pin will go to your ECU side. Like I mentioned, this is not a cut or splice method. This is completely plug and play. All you do is D-pin one specific pin on your ECU side on the harness and put this one to replace it. Super simple, no problems with resistance or the wires being messed up or bad contact. This takes out all the guesswork, all the error possibilities, and makes it super easy to use. Before we actually go ahead and install the Boost by Gear solenoid onto our Integra, I want to go outside and show you on a stock vehicle how this is super easy to put on. Fuse box, run to the engine bay where your solenoid's going to be, and only one pin, just one pin to the ECU to D-pin and put this one in replacement. Super simple. Let's go check it out in the car. Follow me. Let's go ahead and take out 100% of the guesswork when it comes to actually installing the Boost by Gear kit. I'm using my CRV for reference. So what I'm doing right now, I'm taking the access panel off of the fuse box, basically just to expose and show exactly what we're going to be working on. Like I mentioned, this is the mini fuse kit. A lot of the older vehicles, I believe OBD1 or OBD0, use the big fuses. These are the mini ones. That's why this specific kit we ordered is the one that comes with the small fuse. You don't want to order the wrong one because then you'll have to get a different harness. There's two different methods that you can do this. If you're going to be using a circuit that's already used, for example, if I want to piggy off of this 10 amp fuse right there, I'll just go ahead and pull this fuse out like so. Fuse is still good. It's a little bit old, but it'll work. I'll go over to our harness, and if you're using an existing circuit, what you're gonna do is put the fuse onto the bottom open slot of the harness, like so, and replace into that same exact spot using this jumper right there. Now this wiring right here, you're gonna go ahead and run to your engine bay. There's a whole bunch of access spots on the firewall. It's really up to your preference. And there's plenty of wiring right here loomed up, ready to go. So if you have to have it at a weird access spot, for example, in the very front of the car or somewhere tucked off out of sight, you can do that. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and take this mini fuse out of that jumper. That was just for reference. Let's go put that back in right there. Now let's pretend that we're gonna use an open spot. Right next to it, there's a spot that's not being utilized. We're gonna use the supplied fuse that Burton Racing sends with the kit, and instead of putting it onto the bottom spot, we're gonna go ahead and put it onto the top spot. Just like so, super simple. And we'll just go straight to that empty spot. Basically what you're doing, you just wanna make sure that the spot that you're tapping into has power coming from it, because this is going to be supplying power to the solenoid, and then the pin that you're running to the ECU is what's going to be supplying the ground when needed to actually control the boost controller using your ECU. Super simple. Okay, so you just saw how we put the actual mini fuse kit jumper from the wiring harness directly onto the car. You already know that this is going into the engine bay, straight to the Boost by Gear controller, the max solenoid. The one thing that we need to look at right now is the actual de-pinning and re-pinning of the wire that goes into the ECU side. For this specific portion, it really depends on what ECU you're on. If you're using Hondata or Chrome or Neptune, those types of softwares, sometimes they are a different pin which one you go to. It just depends what your ECU software or your tuner prefers. It's a conversation that you can have with them and determine exactly which one they want you to actually pin this into. I wanted to refer back to Burton Racing actual video doing the install. I'm also gonna link that below, but I'm gonna put a little clip right here and show you guys exactly how he explains it and how you can learn from that as well.
Now we're gonna be going over de-pinning and re-pinning the OBD1 ECU connector. We have to release the top tab of the connector to expose the back of the wires, just like so. We have a small de-pinning tool here. You need to work your way up under the retaining clip. Just verify which pin is the right one, just like so. Now you're going to come back in with the Boost by Gear harness, and you're just going to simply install that pin. Once installed, you just clip back the OBD1 connector You can cut this back, secure it with some electrical tape, just keep it out of the way. Now we can run the harness out to the Boost by Gear solenoid.
I'm not 100% sure where I'm actually gonna mount this solenoid. I was thinking of about right here on the front of the frame, but the only thing about this, I don't like running ECU or electronic components near a hot source. It's gonna be near the actual turbo if I put it there. So I'm still gonna play around with fitment. Luckily, the kit that does come with about 15 feet of this push lock DOT airline. So it's great to have all that extra length just in case if you want to do long lines and then switch it up to a shorter line or whatever you want to do. As for the actual plumbing of it, 3-port solenoid is different. I'm going to add the actual diagram for the 3 and the 4-port towards the end of the video. But right here, let me show you real quick. And it's actually a lot easier than you think. For the 4-port, this bottom port right here, and before I say anything, these 3 don't have to be in the exact location. That's just how I want to do it. It's how I'd like to place it. It's gonna be something like that. Anyways, this bottom portion, this is going to go plumbed to the bottom port on the wastegate. This top one is gonna go to the top port on the wastegate, and this one right there is gonna go straight to the front of the turbo itself, while this is just a straight vent to atmosphere. It's all gonna be contained in this small area right here, super simple. The only thing we're gonna have to run is this weatherproof connector to the wiring to the rest of the car. Super simple. I like to cut them just with a little bit of these diagonal cutters. It makes it super easy. Go like this. And it doesn't need to be 100% flush, but I like to make it nice and flush right there. So we're gonna go ahead and take the zip ties off right here. Make this all nice and free. Right. And let's just go ahead and mock it up. Instead of actually threading it in all the way, 100%, I'm just gonna mock it up since I'm not 100% sure on the mounting of it yet. I'm not 100% sure where I wanna place it. All right, the wastegate right there, this is the side port. I've already loosened it. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. With these standard fittings that come with the wastegates and the blow-off valves and most vacuum style sources, you actually run a little banjo with some crush washers right there. But the problem with these, this right here, this little nipple, this actually goes to like a vacuum line, which is never as strong as these air lines to start off with. And there's so much more, or there's so much less resistant to heat. It can chew up through a line super easy, and then next thing you know, you're losing boost or making boost depending on what breaks. And that's the last thing you want to have when you're racing or when you're trying to tune a car. So we're gonna go ahead and install this first port right there. This threads on super easy. It already has the actual thread tape pre-done on there, so you don't have to worry about any of that. The next fitting that I had for the wastegate was right up here on the top of the wastegate. Mind you, this is flipped at the moment because the wastegate sits upside down on this manifold. You gotta think the one closest to the base of the wastegate is always the bottom port, and the one on the top is obviously the top. Go ahead and plumb this in real quick. It's completely plumbed in right there. Well, not completely threaded in. It's just kind of mocked up at the time being while I play with the actual plumbing of everything. The next fitting sits right there on the actual turbocharger. That's the one that's gonna be going on the side port to the right-hand side of the solenoid. Very, very simple. Just cut off this other line, putting from the bottom port on the wastegate to the bottom on the solenoid. Like I said, these are just rough measurements. They're not actually what I'll be using, because there is plenty of line that comes with this kit. You don't really have to worry about running out. Let's go ahead and thread this in a little bit more so it's more secure. There we go. That one is just gonna go to right about here. I actually think what I'm going to do is make a little hole right there, mount the solenoid a little lower than what I was going to, and then run the wiring behind. I think that's what I'll end up doing. The thing to keep in mind, this actual line, this hard line, is a lot harder than you think. It doesn't bend as easy as vacuum line, which you might think, oh, that's not a good thing. It's actually a really good thing because you cut it to length perfectly and then it'll fit perfectly. and it won't kink like these regular lines. Like you can give it a pretty aggressive angle right there, but it's so strong, it's so sturdy that once it kinks, it's obviously gonna have to be bent really, really badly. If for some reason your bracket breaks and this is dangling, the line itself is gonna hold the structure of it. So I think I'll end up doing something like this. You guys can see that onto the bottom of the frame. Let me just angle down the camera. I think I'll do something like that. Or who knows? I might actually just play with a few ideas right now. I'm not 100% certain, but super easy. What I wanted to show you is how it actually gets installed. Side port right here goes to the turbo. This one right here is just vented to atmosphere. These two ports go to the wastegate, bottom to the bottom of the wastegate, top to the top of the wastegate. Super, super, super simple. This just goes right here, clips into place. You have a perfect weatherproof connection on both sides. You don't have to worry about humidity, rainwater, other contaminants, liquids that we have on our race cars or anything. And I think I'll end up placing it somewhere here in the front. Obviously, I'll cut down those lines to length and get it exactly how we like, but she's looking pretty good. All right, you guys, so that does pretty much sum up the video for today. Huge thank you for the team over at Burton Racing for allowing us to have these such easy to use products. Like I mentioned, I'm gonna be getting a bracket to actually put that in a specific spot. I'm just not decided exactly where I want it yet. But if you guys are interested in this, I'm gonna put the link down below as well as the discount code for this so you guys can save a couple bucks. It's a really great kit, and you guys have seen me use their stuff all over the place. Not only on this car, on the CRX, on a bunch of different cars that we build over here and we work on as well. And yeah, hope you guys can have the pleasure of this plug and play kit also. It's super easy to use and it's so clean. It's so much cleaner than having to splice into wiring. And yeah, that pretty much does sum up the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your day as well, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.